Hey everybody, welcome to the Second Mix podcast where we reflect, revise, and remix our lives. I've got a special guest for you today, Tyler Foley. He's been in the movies. He's very motivational. He does speaking now. He's written this incredible book that we'll talk about in the podcast. But first, I want to say something about this format. I had never planned on doing video podcasts, and I arranged my Zoom meeting with Tyler, and he came on video, and I'm sitting there with my microphone in front of me, getting ready to shut my video off so I could start recording. And he looked so good, and it looked like he just set up his entire day to do this, which probably isn't true. But I just couldn't say no, and I, at that point, just decided, I guess we do video podcasts now, and I'm going to put this on YouTube. So here we go. I'm back to YouTube. Enjoy the show. I started talking to him a little bit before I hit record about his sense of humor and how throughout his literature, people have said that he's very, very funny. So that's kind of where we started. I just hit record right in the middle of a sentence.
Do you write your humor, or does it naturally just come out of you?
Yeah, no, it's a natural thing. And the funny thing is using the phrase, I actually don't identify as being a funny person myself either. I think I'm entertaining. I'm definitely engaging, but if I had to think of myself as a natural humorist, I wouldn't consider myself to be one. I recognize good funny, right? But I also have a lot of friends. Like a good friend of mine, Drew, is a actual professional stand-up comedian.
Okay.
And another friend of mine, Dave, has been a professional performer in theater sports, which is primarily designed to be funny. Okay. And like I see what good humor is in people who really understand the science behind a joke. Like if I talk to Drew, like he's got some just incredible material. And he's like, oh yeah, no, and so this is the 3-3-3 setup. And if you go into here, and he just goes off on this tangent that I don't understand. I'm like, okay, so you just say funny stuff, right?
Right.
And I think most of the humor my humor anyways, comes from just the confidence to say something absolutely inane and asinine and just not care and laugh at myself. And then we go from there.
That is excellent. I like that point of view, to just do it, and you're kind of just committing to it no matter how it falls on people. And there you go.
The people who find it funny will find it funny. And then you'll know who your audience is.
I guess that's true. That works. That narrows down exactly who is going to follow you and who is not going to follow you.
Yeah.
So you, let's tell me a little bit about your book, The Method. That I actually started reading about it, and I'm probably going to get it.
Yeah. So The Method is just a 11-page kind of PDF booklet. That's
okay.
5 insider secrets for learning to public speak, and it's the free download and everybody can get it. The book itself that I wrote is The Power to Speak Naked.
Great.
And that is just a fun little dive into 35 years of my experience and a reconstruction of everything that I've done as far as performance goes. Really how it came about was I had a lot of people who would come up to me and ask, how do you do what you do? And usually what they meant by how do you do that is how do you get up on stage and A, not be terrified, and B, keep people entertained. And I had to do, I would answer the questions the best that I could, but it became a theme where I would go and MC something and people would come back, oh, that was great. That was awesome. It's great for the ego, but they wanted to know how they could do it. Or they would imply that they could never do it. And I'm like, it's actually really easy. So I developed a series of workshops to help train people to do it. And then as they became more and more popular, I took everything that we had done in the workshop and basically transcribed it into the book. So the book is basically a download of my brain so that people can do what I do.
That sounds really valuable. Yes, I will definitely be getting a copy of your book because I'm headed toward public speaking myself. I've done it several times in the past. I'm usually very nervous about it.
Mm-hmm.
I project on stage well, but anyway, hey, this is not about me, so I'm going to keep asking you questions. That's something
But it can be about you. So let me ask you a question. What typically, when you find yourself having to present, what is the nervous energy? Why do you feel nervous?
I think part of it is that I want to be impressive, and I don't know if I'm actually being impressive. And I try to get that out of my head, but it's still there.
So here's the thing, and it's one of the things that I talk about in the book. It's also what we spend a good first quarter to half of a day tackling in any of my live seminars. What you're describing is a fear of judgment. So a lot of people, when they talk about being afraid of public speaking, they're actually not afraid of public speaking. We speak in public all the time. And I always challenge this because, right, if you did a survey right now, 77% of Americans would say that they have a phobia of public speaking, a fear of public speaking. That's 3 out of 4. And I go, there is no way that that could possibly be true, because then there isn't a single restaurant on the planet that would be able to sustain its business. Because in order to go and get my food, I have to go and talk to a complete stranger in public and declare what it is that I want to eat.
Okay.
That's public speaking.
That's true. Okay.
Right? So we don't have a problem speaking in public. What we have difficulty doing is expressing our ideas or our thoughts, usually because we are judging ourselves ahead of time, thinking, oh, what if I am not? And it's all those what ifs that we dwell on. And the reality is our audience isn't thinking the things that we think our audience is thinking. I challenge anybody in your audience to think about if the last presentation that they would have gone to, the last time where somebody spoke, whether that was, a keynote presentation or just a lecture, or even in a boardroom and somebody was just presenting information. When they got there, you, me, no one, right, Matt? We don't sit down into a presentation and go, man, I hope this sucks. Man, I hope this person forgets everything that they're going to say. I hope this material is dry and boring and dull, right? Like, nobody thinks that. We go there, at most we're like, I hope this doesn't run too long so that I can get to my kid's soccer game, right? Like, we're distracted with our own thoughts. We're not worried about what you're going to do. So all you have to do is show up and deliver. And we don't know what you're going to say. So all the power resides within the speaker. We don't know what you're going to say. We're already on your side because we showed up. If we didn't want to be there, we wouldn't be there as an audience. You know what I mean? Like, we have a conscious decision. So I showed up. So now all you have to do is deliver on the thing that you promised. And I have no idea what that journey looks like. So you have all the power as a speaker. You just have to come up and present. And when we can get people to understand that, that's when they can step in and do really good, engaging presentations.
Excellent. Yeah, that is a really comforting point of view.
It's almost like I'm a professional at doing this.
It sounds like you've done it before, and you should probably write a book about it.
I probably should.
And then tell my audience about it, because that would be amazing.
I think we can.
So do you have any books that have challenged you or helped you get to where you are? Any books or kind of any media, YouTube videos, people that you like?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I consume TED and TEDx talks like they're going out of style. I love to analyze them for good and bad, because I can see where people are going off the rails sometimes. And then I go, okay, but why is that? And then I get to do a really good technical analysis so that I can avoid the trappings of that. And I can emulate all the really good ones. I can go, okay, well, what made that good? How was the story structured? What was the through line? Like, I can look at those. So I'm consuming TED and TEDx talks. Probably I watch 4 or 5 a day. And the nice thing about TED is they're only 10 to 12 minutes long. So even the longest ones are like 18 minutes. So if I dedicate a half an hour of my time to study, which I often do, I will do that. But as far as books goes, I've had a lot of influential books, but none of them in the way that you would think. So I constantly read and reread 3 books over and over and over again. The Dilbert Future by Scott Adams, which is, and the funny thing is, I don't even read the comics. I skip to the last chapter, which has nothing to do with the Dilbert comics at all, and read Scott Adams talking about manifestation and the power of affirmations, how he uses affirmations and the process that he went through. And then I read the 4 Agreements, which is, I give it to all my coaching clients too. So I read it because I give it to my coaching clients. And I think it's hypocritical if I'm like, here, you need to read this thing, and then I don't read it and I'm not up on the material myself. And The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I absolutely love The Compound Effect. And I love how The Compound Effect combined with the 4 Agreements, when you implement those principles, because they're simple. They're simple, they're easy, they're actionable right now, how rapidly you can see the push and the development in people and the growth in people. So those books I go to all the time. And then I also read a nonfiction book, or a fiction book once a year, called The Fool's Progress by Edward Abbey. And again, any one of my coaching clients who works with me personally gets a copy of that, because it's a masterclass in through line and dropped loops. So you have ideas presented to you that get discussed, and then they just kind of disappear for a little bit. And then he circles back to it. And it's a divergent story that is happening in the past and the present. And then it converges over the course of the novel until each chapter kind of jumps back and forth in timeline from present to past, present, past, until at the very, very end, the last 3 chapters are all occurring simultaneously from 2 different viewpoints. It's just genius. And I make everybody read it so that they understand what I'm talking about when I discuss a through line and power of story and all of the narratives that come out of The Fool's Progress. It's a fantastic novel.
That sounds great. I'm definitely going to check that out. I find it really interesting that the Compound Effect and the 4 Agreements together, they don't seem like books that exactly go together for me. I see them as a lot different. So how would you say that the 2 work together?
Really simply. So the Compound Effect is discussing how small actions over time have a tremendous impact, right? And that if I want to lose weight, or if I want to gain wealth, which is usually the 2 biggest issues that get tackled in North American society anyways, right?
Right.
That I just need to, I'm not going to see the big results right away, that I need to start making subtle changes right now. The problem with it is it doesn't discuss how to get the mental fortitude to do that. And that's where the 4 Agreements is so powerful, because all you're having, right? Do your best every day. And what I love about the 4 Agreements is that when you read if you just read what the 4 Agreements are online, you don't get a lot of context with it. Right. But if you actually read the book, then you understand that, do your best. You need to give yourself some grace and some freedom to know that your best is different every day. Never make assumptions. That is one of the most powerful things that you can do, particularly in conjunction with the Compound Effect. Because if you want to make changes, never make assumption about what the future is going to be, right? You can only control what you can do now. You can only control your own thoughts. Be impeccable with your word. So if I want to commit to this subtle change, I want to run a marathon next year. So I'm going to commit to these incremental changes, as Darren Hardy discusses in the 4 Agreement, or in the Compound Effect. I have to be able to commit to myself. So if I say I'm going to do a thing, now I need to be impeccable with my word and actually go and do that thing, right? So I find that those 4 principles, when combined with the ideas in the Compound Effect, have tremendous impact on somebody's personal growth. I know it had a huge impact on mine. And I see it with all of my clients because it creates a framework not only for how to live internally, but then how to manifest externally. And by combining the two, that's when you see the results, right? You can't have an idea without action, but action unguided creates chaos. So the two combined make just a perfect marriage, in my opinion.
That's outstanding. I'm going to revisit both of those books in light of what you just said, and try to put them together the same way, because that is fascinating.
Yeah.
So your coaching clients, what are they looking for? How are you helping them?
Typically, so I have two very distinct avatars. One, and we've even named them. So I have Dave and I have Mary. Dave is basically me 5 years ago, right? Wanting more, wants to present, wants to be a public speaker, really has a drive and a message and wants to get it out, but has no idea where to start. And so I usually work with Daves. Daves are 35 to 45, 50, somewhere around that range, usually middle management, but seeking executive level, or are entrepreneurs and business startups, really want to be able to do their messaging well, really want to be able to network well. And they're, the typical male businessman type. And then Mary is actually a female entrepreneur or charity director who is struggling with sharing her message because usually she feels that it either isn't important or doesn't matter, or really it's about helping these other people. So she diminishes her own story and subsequently diminishes the impact that she could have for the people that she's trying to serve. And so Mary's typically come to me and are asking things like, how do you do what you do? How do I give a more engaging presentation? Or how do I make my story interesting because I don't think it is? And we work with both of those to tell an engaging story so that they can use their own experience and guide us through how they got to be where they are and why their cause or their company or their passion is important, and bring us to see their point of view.
Okay. Wow. That sounds great. Sounds like you found exactly the right people. I find it really interesting that you named them. Was that some kind of marketing process where you're like, I've got to create my avatar?
No. So the funny thing is the naming came because, again, I feel that there's a power in story, and part of the power of story is visualization. So for me to have like this nameless avatar, this faceless blob, did me no good. So I literally scrolled through thousands of stock images, trying to figure out, who these avatars were. And as I looked at them, I was like, oh, no, that's her. Yes, she is. And we were like, well, what's her name? And I just looked at her. I'm like, I don't know, but I'd marry her. Right. And they're like, oh, we'll call her Mary. Right. So there we go. So Mary. And Dave is because these are the Daves I know. Right. And I don't know if you're familiar with the with Kids in the Hall or Dave Foley, who shares my last name. But I love that comedy sketch. These are the Daves I know, because I think it's universal. And then Dave, there's actually a radio commercial that was going on for the last couple of years where, you'll have that guy. We'll just call him Dave. And I think it's funny because everybody knows a Dave. And so for me, it just made it easy, because when I say Dave, I actually do picture multiple people when I say it. When I say Mary, I have a very distinct and very clear image of who Mary is, right? Mary is, even down to a biblical sense, very kind, very caring, very maternal, and is there for, like, just wholesome and there for good. And I think reserved and quiet. And I think it's because that name Mary, to me, that, I do actually picture, Mother Mary. And that, to me, just that whole picture of somebody who is so significant in development of the world, and yet her story isn't told often or is diminished. And if you want to get further biblical, then you can apply that to Mary Magdalene too, and perversion of stories and all the rest of it. And I think Mary is a true identification for me of who I want to help, because I think particularly those two Marys, if from the biblical sense, were incredibly powerful women whose stories weren't fully told or explored. And I think subsequently their contribution to society has been diminished. And I don't want that to happen to other Marys.
Right. Well, that's great. That is, and it is interesting. Your Dave could be middle management, could be an entrepreneur. There's a lot of stuff that Dave could be, and it's a lot of people to you. But Mary is so defined as to. Do you find that having these definitions kind of calls people to you? You see them more?
Yes. So what I have found is, because I can visualize, right? I'm able to speak. I literally speak to Mary, or I speak to Dave. Now, yes, Dave is multiple people, but like, I know each one of the Daves. Like, I know which Dave I'm talking to. And so if I'm doing media marketing, if I'm having to do a presentation or something, I have a picture of who I'm talking to. I literally have a conversation with a single person. And one of the things that I actually discovered working with vocation is that the more specific your story is, the more universally it's received. And so you really need to hone down and know who you're talking to. And so for me to be able to talk to Mary helps me tell my story, because I know now the words and the language that I'm using. Because I could talk to anybody, or I could try to talk to everybody, but then you're whitewashing your words. They become very generic, and subsequently nobody pays attention. But when I hone my language so that I'm talking in a way that I want Mary to understand, or I'm talking in a way that I want Dave to understand, my language choices differ. And subsequently, my words resonate better with the audience that I'm targeting. And it's that resonance and that harmony and that finding commonality is where I find that we have the most rapport. That's where the most growth happens. That's where I can see the most impact that I'm having, because I can see how it's landing with my audience. And when I can see that, I know that I'm making a difference. And that's really the ultimate goal for what I do, is to influence somebody's thinking so that they can get past some of the blocks that they are having and step out and find their spotlight, step into their greatness.
That's a beautiful mission. I love that. So let's talk about, you said that you enjoy the power of story, or you really believe in the power of story. Can you tell me how that affects you? I hear that a lot, and I get it in some ways, right? I'm a writer. I have done a lot with story, but I still have trouble making that actually happen in my life, or to use a story outside of my own story to try to, I don't know. I feel like instead of trying to put life into a little box is what I feel like I'm doing when I try to use story.
Well, so there's a couple of things with story, and I like what you're saying. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take a few minutes and really unpack.
Okay.
The reason story is so important is because when told effectively, it allows me to see my world through your eyes.
Okay.
And if I can see my world through your eyes, now I can understand how you see our world. Stops being my world, stops being your world, starts being our world. Now we have a common and shared reference space. I may not agree with your standpoint, but I can understand your viewpoint. Because now I can step into your shoes, right? Never judge a person until you've walked a mile in their shoes. Well, I actually can't do that until you take me on that journey. So you need to put me beside you and walk me through your thought process and how you see it. And the way we do that is through allegory. And allegory is how we have communicated for centuries. The Bible is a series of stories that communicates ideas to us. Plato used story to communicate, right? Homer used story to communicate. Shakespeare used story to communicate. All of these great storytellers are the reason we still know their names is because the way that they told the story was universal, right? And it goes down to Joseph Campbell's understanding of effective and powerful storytelling and myth in The Hero's Journey, which is one of the things. So you had said, every time I try to tell a story, I find that I'm compressing it into this box. So one of the things that Les Brown says all the time is never tell a story without a point, never make a point without a story.
Okay.
So usually the first question to ask is, why am I telling this story? What is the point? What am I trying to land? And then that will create the framework of why you're telling the story. And one of the things that I tell all of my clients is, if you break your story down into the hero's journey model, what you need to remember is if you want to tell an effective and engaging and a powerful story, you are not the hero. Everybody wants to inject themselves in and be Luke Skywalker. And the reality is, if you want to tell a powerful and engaging story, you actually have to tell it from the point of view of Obi-Wan Kenobi. You have to be the sage or the mentor and say, I was a Jedi Knight. I was with your father. I knew him. We fought in the Clone Wars. Let me tell you the secrets. And you tell a series of stories that enlighten the hero along a journey that you yourself have already taken. And that's the power of the story. The problem is everybody tries to inject themselves into the hero and it becomes me, 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 me. And it's that egocentric storytelling that tends to disengage your audience because they don't care. Because all of humanity, our first and focal point is ourselves. But if I retell my story as the sage or the mentor, placing my audience in the driver's seat of the hero, you are the hero. Let me tell you how you can accomplish this thing in your life. This was my experience and what you can learn from it. You. Now we're making our audience the focus, and by making our audience the focus, they're more engaged. And that's when you have them. That's when you have the power of story, by letting them, again, see the world through your eyes, by inviting them in, saying, this is for your benefit, not for my benefit.
That is outstanding. There was a lot in there of, I read Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand and his Marketing Made Simple book, which use a lot of those. But hearing the way you just explained it kind of helped me a little bit even more take it out of marketing. And you can apply that to your real life. You can apply that to anybody that you want to help without, not just saying I'm out there trying to earn money, but there's a guy who needs my help. How can I put our stories together and make myself a guide somehow to make him the hero of his story?
Well, and we're marketing all the time, no matter who we are. Like, I mean, if I'm going out on a date, I'm marketing myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, the only way I was able to land my wife was by marketing. I have to do marketing and branding with my child all the time to try to get her to eat the food that I need her to eat and to understand when bedtime is. Like, our entire life is marketing, and the best way to do that is through story. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right that it's universal. And one of the things that I would advise anybody who's thinking, oh yeah, well, but how do I make the money? Well, you make the money by figuring out how to serve the most people. I mean, that's not a new concept. That is not a Tyler Foley, truth bomb drop, right? Like, from Brian Tracy to Tony Robbins to you name it, everybody's going to say the same thing. Find the way to serve the most people when you're going to do that. The problem is we always try to convert the people we're serving into a straight dollar transaction. And I bet 90% of the people that I come in contact with, including your audience right now who are listening to this, will never be a physical monetization to me, right? They're not going to actually physically give me $1. But that doesn't mean that I can't provide value to them and that they don't then provide value to me. There's always a value exchange. So one of the things that I learned from John DeMartini and studying with him and the breakthrough method and a lot of the stuff that John teaches is that there's a perfect balance in the world. There's a yin and a yang, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, that the world finds balance. So no matter what I do, if I lead with value, if my idea is to give the most value to the most amount of people, I will get the most amount of value back. The problem is when I try to assign what that value is supposed to look like. So as soon as I say the value received back must be in the form of dineros, right? Well, that's when I stop seeing all the rest of the value that I'm receiving. So your audience may go, oh, that had impact. And to be honest, Matt, as long as I've changed your point of view, right? If I could have given you something, I've given you value. You've already given me value back for that by giving me a platform to speak to other people. So I have received, in my opinion, probably more value from this exchange than you would have received from me. And so now I have to give to your audience just to be able to find that equilibrium, because I am getting a tremendous value from this conversation. So now I have to give just as much as I'm receiving.
Right. That's an outstanding viewpoint. And also you kind of have to, you're still even guessing about the value exchange, because we don't really always know the full extent of the value exchange. Yeah.
That's the great mystery of life, right? And here's the thing, as a former actor, I mean, I've been performing since I was 6 years old. I get residual checks from some weird stuff. And I always, when I receive them, I always say thank you, right? Like, thank you. How blessed was I to be in a business where I did a thing 20 years ago and I still get money for it. Like, it boggles my wife's mind. She always laughs because I call it my mad movie star bucks, right? And I'd even do a dance in front of her. I'm like, mad movie star money. And I like, like dance. And the best part of it, those checks are usually like $13. Like, it's not big money, but I love that I get to do that. And I think of value exchange the same way that I do with my residual checks. I do this thing and I put it out to the world. I have no idea who's going to watch it, who's going to receive it. But every once in a while, I will get a reminder from the universe that I did this work and it had impact. And that's where my residual checks just are a reminder that, hey, somebody watched Freddy Vs. Jason, and now you get a little bit of money for that.
Right, you know? Right. That's outstanding. I will ask my whole audience here to go out and watch Freddy Vs. Jason so you can get some chicken McNuggets for your kids.
Yeah, no, don't watch Freddy Vs. Jason. If they want to watch a really good show, so let's send them to a good one. So they want to see Tyler Foley in action and support something that's good, go watch Door to Door. It stars William H. Macy and Dame Helen Mirren. Helen won a Golden Globe for her performance in it. It was a phenomenal show about the life of Bill Porter, who was a door-to-door salesman who had cerebral palsy. So it's an uplifting story. It's a fantastic watch. It has great acting in it. And Helen Mirren spills a glass of ice water on my crotch to teach me a lesson. So it's a good show. It's worth watching. And I love getting those residual checks.
That sounds awesome. We will go to door then. You've done quite a bit in your life. You've had a lot of jobs, a lot of different things that you've done. Did you find it difficult to aim toward one thing? Did it feel like you were leaving stuff in the background to head in any one direction?
Yes and no. I mean, anytime we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. But I've done a great well, I haven't done a great deal of study. I have a lot of friends who have worked in the field of heart math, and I am very blessed to have a tertiary understanding of heart math. And when your heart and your head are aligned, and what that means from a being perspective. And so a lot of times I already know the answer. And one of the things that I used to do long before I understood the connection of heart math and heart and mind, I had a coin that I had received from a client that I worked for. And they were a millwright company. So they would do custom metalworks. And the coin was the Argus decision maker. And on the one side, it said, do it. And on the other side, it said, forget it. And anytime I was racked with the decision of something that I needed to do, I would flip that coin. Not to see what the answer was, because I wouldn't leave it to fate. But I would wait to see what the gut reaction was. Because when I flip that coin, I already have an expected outcome. There's a thing that is going to give me relief, and there's going to give me an outcome that will give me sorrow. And a lot of times when you're close to 50-50, you're not actually 50-50. And so I would flip that coin and I'd be like, what is my gut response? What is the thing that I hope is the outcome of this coin? And that would be, I'd never even look at the coin. I wouldn't even care whether it said, do it or forget it. I already knew what I wanted it to be, and that was going to be my decision and my choice. But yes, that means that you have to say no to something else. But recognizing that you're making active choices in your path has always helped me. And the other thing is too, I used to give a keynote presentation called Your River, Your Dreams. And I've modified it since and lost the title. But essentially my belief is that we have a current that we're flowing through in our life, right? Tony Robbins says everything happens for us, not to us. And we can let go to the current and allow ourselves to follow this path, this river path, however winding that course may be. But it's so much easier to follow the current than it is to try and swim upstream, right? If you paddle with the current, you can travel so much faster. Could I get to a different destination if I travel upstream? Absolutely. But I'm always going to be fighting the current. And so I often will use that coin flip to find out if I'm fighting a current or if I'm flowing with a current. Because I know that eventually I'm going to get to a point in the river course where I can't get up a waterfall. You know, I'm going to have to end up coming back down. And so it's finding the natural rhythms so that I know that I'm traveling down this river course and trusting that at the end of it, I'm going to get to the sea. And that takes a great leap of faith or belief or whatever you want to call it. But I have seen the grace in my life over and over and over again, and how everything in my life has built to this point that I'm at right now, where I have a platform to help empower other people to find their platform. And I don't know that there's a bigger calling in the world than that. And the satisfaction that I receive from it on a minutely basis, never mind daily or hourly, weekly, monthly, or annually, every minute I'm fired up to do this work. And that's how I know I'm doing the right thing. Because anytime I've tried to do anything else, it's been slapped down or has pushed me back into this. I was a safety consultant for a little bit because I wanted to do good in the world. But even when I was a safety consultant, I'd end up having some executive go, hey, you're really articulate. Would you come and give a keynote presentation for us? So what am I supposed to do?
Right.
My mission in life, everything that I've done has led to me being an effective communicator and to be able to train people to do what I do. And that's what I'm going to keep doing.
That is outstanding. I wish that everybody could get the conviction for their mission that you have for your mission. I really appreciate you being on the show. So if you had 43 seconds to tell the entire world one thing, you've got everybody online for 43 seconds, what would you tell them?
I don't even need the full 43. I would tell them that your story matters and that the thing you're afraid to say is probably what the world needs to hear. And if more of us would share what's on our heart and not what's on our mind, that we would have better communication, we would have more understanding, and honestly, the world would be a much better place to live in. So don't be afraid to speak your truth, to say what is troubling you, and to expose your soul, your raw, naked truth to the world, and see the impact that you could have doing that.
Wow. Thank you, Tyler Foley. If we want to find you again, where's the best place to look?
Best place to find me is my website, SeanTylerFoley.com. Sean is spelled S-E-A-N, the proper Irish way. SeanTylerFoley.com. Say that Tyler sent you, because I'll know that it was me, because that's what all my friends call me, and you're all my friends now. So SeanTylerFoley.com, and anybody who goes there, right on the main landing page, we have the method, which is an 11-page document that has 5 insider secrets from the 35 years of my professional speaking career that have been compressed down into easy to implement secrets. So if any one of your audience wants to be a more effective communicator, go over to the website, SeanTylerFoley.com, grab your free copy of the method, and it's my gift to you and everyone.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you liked what you heard, please give me a review. Go look up Tyler, buy his book. And if this message resonated with you and you know anybody else who is going to find this useful or helpful, please join my mission and tell them about this show so that they can hear all of this good, positive, pure stuff and get it into their head so that they can start doing the things with their lives that they want to do. All right. Thanks a lot. I will see you guys on Monday.